All right, 7:33 this morning. It's Richmond's Morning News Radio WRVA. My name is Rich Herrera. Thanks so much for being a part of the program and hanging out with us on your way to work. I think a lot of the kids go back to school next week. I know I was talking to my neighbor, like, hey, where are the kids? He goes, it's too hot. They're not going outside. I said, oh. He goes, but next week, they're leaving the house, going back to school. The look on parents' faces of joy when the kids leave to go to school is crazy, Gary.
What?
When that look of parents, once the kids go back, not like little kids, but like, middle school kids, the look from parents like, yes, they're back at school.
Celebration, baby.
Okay, so I actually did discover this. One of the busiest times to go to Starbucks to get coffee is the first day of school. Because every mom will drop their kid off or their dad, and then they have that chance of, okay, those monsters are not my responsibility for the next 5 hours, and they will run to Dunkin's, they'll run to breakfast, they'll run to get coffee, because it's the first time they've been able to relax since the summer started.
Celebration time, I tell you.
Meanwhile, all the kids are like, but I thought you loved us. Yeah, we love you, but go to school because you're driving me crazy.
It's funny because, Henrico's doing it this year, and the other major localities, Richmond, Hanover, Chesterfield, have done it for a couple of years, doing this staggered start. So it's like some of the kids go Monday, right? Some don't go till Tuesday.
Oh, how would you like to be the kid who doesn't have to go to school till Tuesday, and your brother or sister has to go on Monday, and like, I don't have to go to school today. You do. And then they come home and you're like, yeah,
I'd make that kid cut the grass.
Oh, if it were my brother and sister, they'd come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had the best day. I sat around, I went in your room, touched all your stuff. I watched everything I wanted on TV, and then I ate ice cream all day. How was yours?
Yeah, I went to school.
Yeah.
I got to check. In some of these localities, the kids don't have to go the second day.
What?
The ones that go the first day don't have to go the second day. It's like,
no. Don't you tease me as a parent that they're going one day and then I got them back the next.
So I don't know. I got to double check that.
Well, I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and she's a school administrator, and she's like pulling her hair out. They've been in school for a week, and she already has teachers that have called in sick 3 days, and she has some that have already they took vacation this week. Like, you just have the whole summer off. Yeah, I'm going to go on vacation.
I'm hearing from some teachers who are less excited about school starting than other parents.
Exactly. All right, go back to work. Thanks.
Okay.
Let's see. There are a couple things I wanted to touch on. Oh, I was going to tell you this story. These two stories are intertwined. So I saw this morning. The WNBA commissioner, and the reason, by the way, the reason why we're talking about this will now make sense to you when you hear what the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, had to say. She denounced people that said they are trying to sow divisiveness, quote unquote, as the league grapples with the debate over transgender athletes. She made the comments yesterday before the Fevers lost to the Dallas Wings in Dallas. Demonstrators showed up outside the arena as they have another venue since the Fever. Sophie Cunningham voiced support for barring transgender girls and women from girls and women's sports in an extensive ESPN profile. So why do I keep bringing up the WNBA? I already told you, no one cares about the WNBA. No one watches the WNBA. The WNBA is not one of the top 10 sports in America right now. More people watch golf and UFC than the WNBA. So why do we keep talking about it? Well, it's the new battleground. Why is it the battleground? Couple reasons. The WNBA made it the battleground, and now they're upset because they're reaping what they sow. Right now, you have a person named Sophie Cunningham who has become, and I've said this on the show before, her intention was not to be the standard bearer for the Republican Party and the conservatives and the Make America Great Again movement. She simply made a comment in a magazine that a lot of people agree with, that biological males should not be playing against girls. Period. End of story. It was one statement she made out of 100 to ESPN, but for whatever reason, that caught fire. And it caught fire with blowback against Sophie Cunningham. Now, this is why it's become the new battleground and why we're talking about it so much. This is the next cultural fight. The WNBA, remember, I told you folks, and until you accept this, you're not going to get the whole picture. You are counterculture. Conservative Americans are counterculture because something like the WNBA, we are 100% counter to what the WNBA has been. It's been a very liberal, progressive league, embraces LGBT and embraces a lot of progressive ideas. It was their little world, and nobody else really kind of ventured into it because it's not that popular of a sport. Caitlin Clark comes out. Everybody goes on the left, let's really raise the profile for women's sports. I told you the story. What had happened was at the Final Four, the men get everything under the sun. The women didn't get as much. I know the basketball coach that made the statement, look, we have one little piece of equipment. They've got a full gym. This isn't right. They didn't get the same benefits. They didn't get the same swag bag. They didn't get the same kind of things at the women's tournament that the men did. And she complained because in college athletics, Title IX, whether you earn the money or not, you get treated the same. The men get treated at this level. You have to treat the women on this level because of Title IX, even though the women's program will lose $5 million and the men's program will carry the women's program, make it a profit. But in that world of college sports, which is part of that woke utopia, whether you make money or not doesn't matter. You all get the same resources. See where I'm going with this? So they wanted to raise the profile of women's sports and make it just as big as the men, and they found their poster child, and it was Caitlin Clark. She was a great story, and every progressive in the world tried to elevate her, and they said, we can make the women's Final Four bigger than the men's. They talked about her on Good Morning America and The View, and they talked about her CBS This Morning and Entertainment Tonight. Before you know it, she had probably $1 billion of earned media propping her up to prop up the women's game because they thought the women's game was just going to be as big as the men's. Not because that many people are watching it, because they just said it needs to be, we need to have equal coverage of both, whether people watched it or not. So all these little girls who hadn't been exposed to women's college basketball fell in love with Caitlin Clark, and then they followed her into the WNBA, and all of a sudden they're not welcome in here because they want to watch Caitlin Clark. They're not there for the whole progressive agenda. And now, with more of these little girls that have come into the WNBA as fans, the progressives don't want them as fans. And when their hero, Caitlin Clark, gets beat up on a daily basis, she's got someone who stands up as her teammate in Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham makes one statement, and all of a sudden, Sophie Cunningham's the biggest villain in the world. And these little girls are like, wait a minute, we love Sophie Cunningham. That's why this is the middle of the American debate right now, because they had an idea of their little utopia. They thought all the rest of us would want to jump into their little utopia. And when we didn't, now they're upset. Now that's why the commissioner is saying she's denouncing people that are trying to sow divisiveness as the league grows. Well, either you keep your league a little niche or you invite everybody else in. But when you invite everybody else in, you have to have a divergence of opinions. And if you don't want those diversions of opinions, then don't call yourself a professional sports league. It go back to being a little organization of utopian ideas the way you were. You can't ask for all the people, the attention, and all the eyeballs and not expect the smoke when you are not inclusive. That's why this is such a big fight. So I saw that story. I wanted to bring that up with you because there's a writer at the Seattle Times that actually wrote, and this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. There's a writer at the Seattle Times. And again, lean away from this is sports and lean more into this is a cultural battle. There's a writer at the Seattle Times who wrote a column talking about the perspective of young girls that followed the WNBA primarily because of Caitlin Clark and then Sophie Cunningham and their reaction to what you're seeing. Column got spiked by a major newspaper. And like me, he's like, what am I doing here? I'm not covering this the way that I can. They're telling me what I can say and what I can't, and they're putting their thumb on me to be quiet. I walked away from sports for the very same reason. That's why I called and said, hey, you know what? I have opinions. You're not going to let me say them on Sports Talk. I'll go do it on News Talk. Took 3 years for me to reinvent myself to come over to get a chance to do this. He's doing the same thing. When they spiked his column, meaning, okay, thanks for the column, we're not going to run it, he said, fine, I'm out. Because of the intolerance of the left. Same people that used to tell me, hey, Rich, shut up and talk sports. Meanwhile, everybody at ESPN can say whatever they want from the left. From the right, you're not allowed to open your big fat mouth, shut up, and go back and talk about sports. Same thing he saw, and he goes, fine, you know what? I'm out too. And there's a whole bunch of people that are saying, you know what? No more. I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to stand up to those in culture that try to quiet us. So I applaud him.
30 seconds.
I applaud him a lot. I'll get to the Little League World Series, why I think that's so bogus coming up on the program. You want to comment, please feel free. It's not so much that we're talking about the WNBA, but it is an example of the intolerance of the left and the fact that we need to realize we are counterculture. We are the people on the outside, and when we come into their world, they don't want us anywhere near it. Rich, shut up and go talk about linebackers. Nobody wants to hear you talk about anything else. Meanwhile, Jamel Hill and Stephen A. Smith, you guys can say whatever you want. Rich, you be quiet. All right, fine. I'm going to go do this. This writer, you can't write that. Fine, I'm out. People need to speak up and not bow down to those that want to silence and choose what voices get heard and which voices don't. Everybody deserves a voice. Not everybody's earned a platform. You want to comment? The number for you to join us, 833-804-1140. Something to think about, 833-804-1140. Coming up, we'll have Richmond's Morning News Brief. We'll be joined by Governor Allen. All coming up, your News Radio WRVA. All right. Let's say that you